Okay, my name is Krestin Harrington. I'm a moderator and journalist for Deutsche Welle, headquartered in Berlin. And this panel, we are going to discuss esports and television and answer the question, is that a winning combination? And we're going to learn a lot more from our panelists, which are Stefan Zant from the Sportv family, Bruno Bouniton from Proximus, Michiel Bakker from GINX TV, and Roger Lodewick from DreamHack. I'll allow each of the panelists to give a bit more information about what they do for their respective companies, starting with you, Bruno.
Hello, everyone. So Bruno Bouniton, working at Proximus, so biggest telco company in Belgium. I'm responsible for the sports acquisition strategy and also all the esports developments, and we are working in esports since 2017. So that's why I'm here to talk a bit about experience of a telco company in esports.
Thank you, Michiel.
Good morning. I'm the CEO of GINX. We are the world's largest esports television network and operate GINX.TV, a fast-growing online platform that is accompanying the channel. The channel reaches 45 million households internationally, mostly in Europe, where our biggest markets are the UK, France, Germany, Eastern Europe.
All right, Stefan, please.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Stefan speaking, based in Munich, Germany. So I'm heading the sports department of Proximus at One, which is Germany's biggest private broadcaster. And within this sports unit, we do a lot of things, like we're broadcasting Bundesliga, we are broadcasting NFL, DTM, Formula E, and a lot of things. And one of the things is esports, which we have in our portfolio. And I think that's the thing we talk about today. And we do it via multiple channels. So we have esports on TV, both on pay TV, free TV. We run a digital platform, esports.com. We have esports podcasts. We do esports events, and of course, YouTube, Twitch, social. So across esports, across all the different channels.
All right, Roger, please.
Hi, I'm Roger Lodewick. I'm the CEO of DreamHack. At DreamHack, we are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gaming festival around the world, mainly focused on, at the moment, Europe and North America. We're part of the MTG group, so our sister company, or actually now it's not anymore a sister company. It's we are now one company, ESL Gaming, and DreamHack are now one company together. And I would say now we are undisputably the biggest esports provider, and particularly in the CSGO field in the world. So that's who we are.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this conversation is going to encompass many topics, ranging everything from esports TV partnerships to the evolution of the market. And fittingly, because it's still in the headlines, COVID-19, I wanted to start with talking about the way COVID-19 impacted each of your companies and what were the benefits. Were you thinking ahead of the curve? Were you prepared, for the absence of sports? Bruno, please.
But like for us, it was so we have lots of live sports also on our platform. So one of the biggest impact was the stop of all the live event. But we had a big luck on the fact that we were already in contact and in partnership with companies delivering us esports content and enable us to organize quickly some esports event. So yeah, on the fact that there was no live matches for Champions League or domestic league or stuff like this, it doesn't mean that you can compensate it with an esports, but you can have some live events very quickly in esports, because it doesn't take a lot of time to organize online competition that you can produce on a remote mode. So there was a big impact of COVID on the live stuff of real sports, but on esports, I would say that on our side it was limited, and actually it has pushed a little bit us to organize more competition in a very short time.
All right. Next, just feel free to speak. I don't want to call on everyone's name.
Because we're in a similar position like Bruno is. So same here. Of course, we had a problem because there was no soccer and no live sports at all. And everybody said, "Oh, we are happy that we have esports in our portfolio to compensate a little bit at least." But as Bruno said, it's by far too little to compensate whatever was lacking on the traditional live sports. But in the end of the day, it was, I think, a good way to try out things. For example, you might have heard about the Bundesliga Home Challenge. So the Bundesliga, because they don't have any games, they actually switched completely over to FIFA. It was, I think 29 different clubs playing a FIFA tournament, the Bundesliga Home Challenge, which was a good thing. It would normally not happen in that way, but there was nothing else to do. So we did it. The players actually moved in, and it was a really good thing. The reach was okay. Same, for example, the Formula E guys, because they started the Race at Home Challenge. There were no races, so they did that. Always a very good thing, just to keep the fans engaged, to keep them activated, to bring something back to the sponsors who haven't been seen in the lockdown. The DFB did a charity tournament also on FIFA. So a lot of sports-related games had a kind of uplift during that time. I mean, there were like good examples also in the US. And of course, after the traditional sports went back to normal, or to at least normal, you can see that went down again. But I'm sure that the level of attention on esports is higher than it was before COVID. That definitely.
Yeah,
but
I would say
still
that,
too much niche to compensate anything from the real sport.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, the main impact for GINX at least was that the migration or the availability of the audience, the size of the audience online, multiplied by an enormous factor due to COVID. And we've witnessed that in our own online platform. You know, our online audience has grown by a factor of 29x since March. So, you know, partially that is because of initiatives that we undertook, but I think we had a fair wind, if you will, if you can use a positive term like that, of a much larger available online audience with more time to spend to find content. And I would support what Stefan has said, is obviously the focus on esports as an alternative to traditional sports by platforms, you know, has definitely increased. So I think there's a lot more boardroom attention being paid to esports as not totally a replacement, but certainly a supplement to the provision of traditional sports on TV.
Yeah, and there, I think it's. We also saw the same, Michiel, like you did. You know, we actually saw quite a big growth in actually our esports activities. I had to smile a little bit when Bruno said, you know, it's quite easy to set up some online, you know, esports tournament. I'll convey that to the 500 people that are trying to do this on a daily basis at ESL.
That's why we are in partnership with ESL. So it was with that. So congratulations.
we made it probably look very easy. Yeah. I mean, there's two things that how it impacted us. It's obviously one part is the festival side. You know, that's a big part of the experience. One on the esports side, so you know, creating in a big stadium, you know, getting people excited. It's a different atmosphere. You know, when you have 10,000 people in a stadium and clapping and cheering for their teams. And the other side is just the actual experience of a DreamHack festival, which is more than just esports. It's all about gaming. It's about the whole experience of a festival. So that is gone. That impacted us quite significantly. But the esports side, obviously, is something that, you know, we saw indeed a growth, and it actually challenged us to actually rethink how we're doing this and whether there are certain things to spread it out, to give people more the exposure. The thing that Stefan was also mentioning, the exposure for partners, it's obviously super important to keep those levels up, because obviously that's a key revenue of income. And I think we actually adapted quite quickly, particularly on the esports side, and I must say in a good way for us to actually use COVID in a positive way, and saw also lots of positive signs of the impact actually of COVID, forgetting about the event side then at least.
Right. Okay, good. Now you said one word that naturally continues the conversation and moves it forward, partnerships. But before I speak on that, I would like to address the audience. If you have questions for our panelists specifically, please use your chat function to send the panelists a question, and in real time, hopefully they'll be able to look over the questions and answer the questions in a timely manner. You should be able to access your chat function, and those questions will get to the panelists in due time. Okay, partnerships. Now, the mutual benefits of esports and television partnerships going, mainstream and not just live stream. Let's talk about the editorial touches, that might separate you, from your competitors, from others, and what you've learned from the partnerships, and where you'd like to see them develop. Stefan, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's our bread and butter business, right? Like what we do is we get a lot of input from DreamHack, from ESL, and all the other esports leagues from various platforms, and we definitely want to differentiate towards Twitch, which is the main live streaming platform, but of course it's live streaming only. So it's a 6-hour game, and this is esports for Twitch. And what we do then is exactly what you just said, Krestin. Actually, we took an editorial approach and include many things. So this includes education, entertainment. Like it's more about highlights, analysts, experts, and stuff like that. And the beauty of that is, coming back to your question on partners, you can perfectly then integrate partners. And that's a very important thing. I mean, when you're ad financed, and esports is primarily an ad financed business, you need to handle it completely different in esports than compared to soccer and other sports. And I think Roger can talk a lot about that in specific, because the esports audience is much more critical when it comes to what kind of advertising they accept and what kind of advertising they engage on. And this is why editorial work like we do it, because we are an entertainment company, we are a content company, is a very good way to include those kind of partners and advertisers. And then you need to play the 360-degree approach, where you say, hey, partner, you can get a completely cross-media package. You can happen on events, on podcasts, on social, on TV, and you have everything from a few pieces with engagement and a few pieces with big reach like TV, because it still has by far the biggest reach on esports, right? That's how we approach the thing. So yeah, it's all about winning new partners, because this is which brings us money back in order to grow further.
Okay, Michiel, yeah. Would you like to chime in? Bruno, Roger?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would amplify what Stefan says. Obviously, with GINX, we kind of are a hybrid of a content creation company in esports, but we have our own platforms. So we have our own TV channel, and then we have our own online platform. So the beauty of having both those platforms is that indeed you can work with advertisers across both and use the different media for different things. I.e., the online side of things would be for more deeper engagement, and the TV side of things probably for reach and frequency building. So, but having both those together is helpful. And indeed, the editorial differentiation is what we think about a lot. Obviously, television is a very different sort of medium than online. We focus by nature of its medium more on a mainstream audience, because there's just a pool of people that are available on television are more mainstream. And so we tend to focus a lot on the entertainment aspect and the human aspect of the stories behind esports, rather than simply rebroadcasting online competitions, because by their very nature, they are available online and therefore not exclusive to the TV experience, and maybe not specifically made for TV. So we focus very much on the storytelling aspects as a point of differentiation. And then the other aspect is that because we're so heavily focused on television, we talk to partners quite a lot about the safety, if you will, of a very highly regulated television environment, which is a good environment for non-endemic brands to make a first sort of step into esports. Because there's still, I would say, there's still quite a bit of concern, particularly with brands that are not familiar with esports, about navigating the waters of esports. And so television is actually a good first step in, if you will.
Right, storytelling. Bruno, talk to me about the storytelling aspect, you know, and what you've gone for and has been successful for you in terms of reaching a larger audience.
Yeah, so on our side, we are currently focusing on 3 games because or they are the most popular or the most played. So we are on CS:GO, League of Legends, and FIFA. So first of all, the editorial approach on those 3 are completely different if you speak about FIFA or you speak about CS:GO and League of Legends. And on those aspects, our objectives as a Belgian company focused on Belgium, we had so that there was actually no ecosystem on esports in Belgium. It was developed and it was big success, DreamHack, ESL, the world of League of Legends worldwide. But in Belgium, there was really a lack of development. And so the objective was clearly to support the creation of ecosystem in Belgium. And how we have done that was to try to bring content to people and to create from zero to hero story. So editorial approach is very important, but the gaming and the support of the development of real esports stars in Belgium is very important for us. And so we made a partnership with a company that are since years in esports, like ESL. So we have created the ESL Proximus Championship for CS:GO and League of Legends. And we had the partnership with the Pro League, so the owner of the domestic football league, to make a link with FIFA. So we are not organizing and managing an esports competition. We are the main sponsor. We are we support in communication, and of course we bring content to people. So in the storytelling, we are on Twitch, but we wanted also to increase the audience and eyeballs and bringing content on TV. So that's why we have created the first finals in Belgium, which were broadcasted live on TV and so on. In a nutshell, on that side, I think we will speak about that. But the experience we have in sports and the premium experience we bring on TV was not so easy to bring on esports, because when you speak about production, sometimes we don't use the same standard. We don't use the same way of working. When you speak about the highlights in football, it's completely different approach in esports. So that's something, yeah, I believe with company like ESL or DreamHack International, they are used to do that. But with local company, it's quite, it take a bit time to be able to talk correctly together. But no, it's okay. After 2 years, we are more than happy. And we made more than 150,000 eyeballs watching our live finals, the last final. So yeah, Belgium is small, so it's a big figure for the first finals on TV.
Yeah, and I think that just compliment. Oh, somebody's putting me on echo. There we go. I think that's a super important part for, I'd say, traditional broadcasters to step into the esports world, is definitely to have that editorial value. You know, not just to take the live feed and just restream it. You need to contextualize it. And I mean, I know Bruno and Proximus very well also from our previous job, and they actually do that big time. So it's great to have people stepping in and really embracing the product, because that obviously also enlarges the esports following and the understanding of esports. Because, you know, the people that are currently already understanding CS:GO, you know, they are quite quickly, you know, understood, and they'll quite quickly follow what you're doing. But I think to enlarge that, and I think that is one of the key things that also helps with having traditional broadcasters in, to enlarge that following, you need to be able to explain both credibly to the knowledgeable audience, but also the, you know, educate in a way the other people of what's really going on, and making them understand the game and the importance and the relevance of certain strategies. And I think that is a super, once you get that sorted, then as a linear broadcaster or as a traditional broadcaster, you can really attract a very young audience, because that's obviously the beauty of esports. It is a super young audience, and traditional sports, the viewership, it's just getting older and older. And, that is obviously something beautiful for broadcasters to attract that young demographic.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another way to attract a younger group would be grassroots programs, and so forth. Let's talk about the promotion, the investment of the promotion and development, of these programs. And Roger, I'd like to start with you, and then we could just work our way back, as well. Talk to me about the approach in that, and how successful it's been for you, developing, in particular areas to connect with audiences and so forth.
Well, I think, for example, a partnership like we have that with Proximus, with EZEL, has with Proximus, to create local leagues, to educate and to give broadcasters also, a bigger footprint into actually the local market, to actually create with them particular local leagues. I think that's a very important element. If I look at DreamHack particularly, for us, it is the festivals. So I think in 2015, when we were taken over by MTG, we were doing festivals mainly in Sweden. Now we are in 10 different countries around the world, and trying to get people to understand. And I myself am I'm a believer now, where people before kind of say, gaming is, it's not something social, not at all. Well, come once to one of our festivals, and you'll see how how peaceful, how positive that atmosphere is, and how actually people interact. And I think that educational level, I think you just get by also, one, working together with media partners, because they obviously have the reach, but two, by also physically being present. And therefore, we can't wait to have events again, because that is part of actually growing the esports business. It's the same as in football or as in tennis. Events without actually having spectators, without having things travel around, it's just different. So I think that's a very important element, to actually have the particular festivals as well as the media reach, and not only the media reach on Twitch, which is super important, but actually to broaden that to other media outlets, like we're now doing here with Proximus and ProSieben.
And I mean, also for us as a media partner, it is important to have people in the stadium, right? Or at the festival, because just imagine, like, everybody now watches soccer. It's just it's a boring soccer experience to watch 22 guys on a field, and there's no fans and no singing and no emotions. I mean, it's a different experience, and the same applies to esports. It is like, esports is the top level of gaming, yeah, right? And they are like festivals like DreamHack, ESL 1 in Cologne. There's like 15,000 people in a stadium screaming, and those guys are intrinsically hardcore fans, and they live it. And this is, of course, what we aim for, to actually bring over those emotions to the guys in front of the screen. And I mean, this brings me also to the question here in the chat. I mean, there's two questions on the comparison between Twitch and TV, and I might start, and then Bruno and Michiel, you can jump in, because there's always the question, hey, why do you bring esports on TV despite Twitch? And Roger just said it. I mean, it's in our way, in our approach, it's a complete complementary approach, because on Twitch, it's the hardcore community. It's those guys who really watch live streams with an English commentator and are completely into the game. And also the reach of the single streams is not that huge. It's of course an aggregation of multiple streams, which brings up the size of Twitch. And what we aim for in when we bring it to TV, and we don't bring a lot of esports events to TV, only the major ones. It's really about addressing the mainstream, addressing people who have not watched esports before, or who are just entering the sphere. And this is why we do it on a more editorial way, because we want to also explain the game, explain the teams, give some background content, some shoulder content, some some stories around what is happening there. It's not only the game, it's not only the world feed, which is sent through on TV. It's really about going back in the breaks into a studio and explaining what is happening there. And there's much more to it than just the live stream that happens on Twitch. And we want to bring that emotions in and this education in to bring even more people into the esports environment. And in my personal opinion, this is how esports will grow, how it is predicted to grow, because it's all about bringing new people into the ecosystem, because esports is just as a good movie or as a good Bundesliga game. Like if you're into it, it's really, really cool sports. And this is how we all gonna benefit in the long term, because it is media partners also for the mainstream next to Twitch, who will then make the cake bigger and everybody gets its fair share of the cake. And there was also a question on the viewer experience compared to Twitch. Yes, there is, of course, on a broadcasted TV, there is no chat, there's no engagement, but this is why we have the studio, where we have via social an interaction with the community via, we use a netman, for example, who does that interaction. It's a different way, it's more a personal way, but it's a different thing. And looking at the numbers, it proves that it's room for both. And it's also necessary, in my opinion, to have both in order to win in the long term for the whole esports ecosystem.
And I would
make it.
I would add to Stefan that, you know, I would agree. TV is not a replacement for Twitch, right? We're a complementary element. We're in fact, what we talk about at GINX is we're trying to build a bridge between the online world of esports and television. And I would echo Stefan's comment, like we're trying to bring in new audience into esports and help, in a sense, platform operators, cable operators, OTT platforms to connect with that audience, which is, you know, a highly valuable future sports audience for these platforms, right? If you're dealing with, as Roger was alluding to earlier, if you're dealing with an aging demographic on traditional sports, then esports is the ideal kind of new world to rejuvenate your sports packages and offer something new. And then you have to learn, I think, as a traditional OTT platform, probably to be more leaky and to allow more content to flow from, you know, to flow between behind your paywall and Twitch, and that's the new world, and people have to learn about that. So that's the answer to your question about viewership differences between Twitch and television, the role of television versus Twitch, in my humble opinion. Then, in terms, Chris, on your question on grassroots, you know, the good thing about esports is it's a very global, very interconnected world. So, by way of example, we at GINX are broadcasting the Umzansi League together with a company called Nodwin that are based in India. The competition is in South Africa, but we're broadcasting it across our network. And that is, you know, not typical grassroots, but it's a local competition that we're broadcasting internationally to help drive awareness of that, of a local competition in one market to other markets. So in that sense, the reach of television is helping to amplify local competitions on the global level, for example.
All right, Bruno, would you like to, please?
Yeah, I think that was already said, but one word is key for me in that sense. It's emotion, really. So, and to answer the question, why to go on TV if the content is on Twitch? Why not? It's just because now the question comes because in Belgium, for instance, there was no esports content on TV, but it's not the reason why not to go. So it's really reaching new people. It's complementary, indeed, and it's bringing emotion to people on TV, and it's a convenience to watch it on TV. I always said that, for instance, there are in Belgium lots of people having watched the semi-final of the World Cup, France versus Belgium, but it doesn't mean that they are fan of football. It's just that it was emotional. It was really the country for that. So it's not yet what's happening in esports. But what I mean, when you go to ESL1, the first time I came, I thought it was my first experience for esports. I just thought that it was people on a stage playing a computer and only geeks watching that quietly. Go once to a big event, you will see that it's purely emotion in the venue. And that's what we bring on TV also. So that's the key, the most important stuff. And on Twitch, just to tell something also, for us, it was a completely new way to acquire content also, because Twitch is clearly based on the language license. So if I want to broadcast ESL or a League of Legends event, I need to buy the worldwide rights for French-speaking side. Where on TV, for the moment, it's still possible to buy territory per territory, which make a difference for us who are bringing experience on international content. So it's important if there are medias in the room, that's the way to acquire content is quite different on Twitch or on other media.
Okay. No, we are running out of time. I just want to make sure we cover as you can see, there are a few questions. A question for you, Roger, and a specific question for you as well, Bruno. But I did want to touch on a few things in terms of content distribution, very briefly, and monetization, and then we can come back and follow up with the questions. Yeah. So the difference is, I mean, what's your strategy in terms of, which content on which platforms, is your approach as of at this time? Stefan?
I mean, we would say all content on all platforms. Yeah. So we try to address multiple target groups, and we want to address the same person on multiple, let's say, moods and multiple instances a day. So, for example, when you have a podcast, it's of course more or less the same content like we have done for a video piece, a highlight piece on esports.com. It's obvious that there are happening a lot of highlights over the weekend because it's multiple games, yeah, and then it's multiple tournaments within the games. So like an esports fan can't really consume all of that during the weekend, because he would actually, even though he would watch 24 hours a day, Saturday and Sunday, he wouldn't be able to watch everything, even though he's a big fan. So our aim is to, by doing editorial work, bringing it together in short form video, in text, in news and highlights, and then distributing it on TV. We have a weekly magazine with full of like a week, 1 hour per week, aggregating all highlights that happened over the week. Yeah, so that is happening. And of course, the same content will then be extended on esports.com, because we have much more space there than 1 hour. And then the same content will be on podcast, but of course in a different way, because audio need to play differently and stuff like that. So we're really trying to get it cross-platform and find and address our viewers on every single instance when he's active in front of the screen. And I think that that's the way to go, because there's so much content out there. I think we are like using probably like 10-20% of the content we're getting from our license holders.
In our case, the lesson we've learned is that taking television content and putting that online doesn't work. Like for online, you really need to think about content that, for example, needs to be shorter. The camera angles may need to change, and they may need to place the camera closer to people's face. You may need to make your content ready so it can be consumed without audio, and so you need to add text to your content. So we feel that the content is diverging. Our online content is shorter. It has subtitles. It will be, we're a video-centric platform because that's what we do, but it's shorter, and the camera angles are close to people's face. And we create bespoke content for each platform, because the way the content is consumed is very, very different. Now, obviously, I agree with Stefan. You try to, if you have a half-hour show for television, how can you create something in parallel when you're recording that show that is bespoke for mobile? So you don't duplicate your recording time and your cost, but you figure out a way to simultaneously record for different platforms. TikTok is a particularly good example. Like TikTok is very much, you need to have a portrait format instead of landscape. You need to be very, very in your face. The content needs to be about pranks. So whilst you're recording a show, you also in parallel do something very specific for TikTok, for example, alongside. So our content is sort of amoebic, and it morphs into different shapes and forms for each platform that our brand is present on.
Right. Naturally, I would assume you'd want to be on every platform, that content is consumed, not to alienate any potential, growth in your audience.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone want to add, Roger or Bruno, anything to talk about the idea of, I know exclusivity, Roger, is something that's unique to you in a lot of respects. Would you like to touch on that in your strategy in terms of distribution?
Yeah, and I think I previously worked for a company that was selling the Champions League, and you're selling that really on a territory by territory basis. So I think with esports, you're more looking at languages rather than at territories, at least at this point in time still. So you're more looking at distributing that content to a particular partner, and I think Stefan really hit the hammer on the head by saying, it's a cross-platform, and you want to get that reach, and people, across borders out of the DACH region that want to consume that content in German should be able to actually get that content also in German, because that helps everybody to grow either their business or the appeal of the particular competition. So exclusivity, I think I saw in the questions, why it wouldn't be sold in France yet. It was too expensive. Well, that's how it is. I think it's not just a price thing. I think it also, you need to have a broadcaster or a media partner that is actually ready to make the step into esports. Because for lots of people, particularly who are used to the traditional broadcasting world or the traditional sports world, it's still we say in Dutch, a far from my bed show that, they don't really yet get and see the opportunity. So sometimes it's a matter of the market is just not ready for it yet. Sometimes it can be the price, but I think that is generally not the thing, because as I said, I think the most important thing is to have a partner that sees the value of it and is ready to put editorial, resources into the product, because that is the thing that you want to do. You want to have a media partner that embraces the product and not just takes the product to fill the channel. You want someone who actually thinks, this is something that actually helps us either to reach a younger audience or to do something different than what we've done before.
Yeah, and the broadcaster needs a good sales unit in order to sell that, right? If he's only focusing on traditional sports on the sales, he's of course not able to refinance it. You need to have also a sales unit who understands esports and can explain it to the advertisers. And then it's, in my opinion, easy to refinance. Yeah.
And well, this conversation, let me use your quotes. Well, Bruno, because we're running out of time. As you see, we have 5 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that we give everyone an opportunity to touch on two things really quickly. Monetization, our mixed model is the way to go moving forward, to be the most successful. And, the evolution, keep in mind, as the presidential debates were, we have so much time to talk. So please, Bruno, I'd like to start with you. If you could touch quickly on those two topics.
So for the moment, on the monetization, we do not monetize esports as such. So to be clear, there is no pay TV channel on esport or stuff like this. So it's part of our TV basic TV offer, and we try to reach as much as possible people on Twitch and stuff like this. That's one element on, but I think GINX is part of one of pay package in one country, if I remember well. So maybe it's a good example to say the next step for this kind of channels.
Right. Okay. Would you like to follow up with that? I know you're in the Sky bundle, if I remember correctly. But in terms of the evolution, simulation sports, I know, is a big thing versus traditional sports and so forth. What is your strategy in that direction?
In terms of monetization for GINX, we're in, as you said, we're in pay television bundles. We're distributed by telcos, by OTT platforms, by traditional cable operators. So if there are any in the audience that have not yet launched GINX, here I am. You know where to find me. I think that's how we monetize the principal way of monetizing our business is distribution deals with platforms, and so that will grow, and we continue to do deals. But obviously, we're also monetizing our online audiences with advertising and sponsorships, and then try to cross-fertilize those two audiences. So that's our monetization. I think that's the plan that we're laying out for the future. As to the evolution, obviously, we put a lot of play on the cross-fertilization of regions. we'd like to obviously encourage all tournament operators and games publishers, to include television in their thinking and in their strategy, because I think if esports is to achieve the lofty growth goals, there has to be a mainstream reach out, and television is a very good tool to do that. So I see continued growth of distribution of our own channel that will help in, it's a sort of symbiotic relationship. We grow, we build reach, and TOs and publishers can use that reach to grow esports as a whole.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add very briefly? If not, I'd like to thank our panelists for having this conversation. Bruno Bouniton, Michiel Bakker, Stefan Zant, and Roger Lodewick. And you have their contact information, I believe. So if you do have follow-up questions, I would urge you to reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be more than willing, to respond. And I'd like to thank our panelists as well, for the conversation. Time runs quickly, as we've seen, but hopefully there were a lot of things of useful, just useful things, I should say, for the audience, that they learned today, and maybe you can incorporate with their companies in their respective positions. So I'd like to thank you guys again, and I'd like to wish you a good day.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.